In the bustling neighborhoods of suburban Charlotte, North Carolina, live two close friends, Michael and Sarah. Both are hard-working individuals, typical of the American middle class, striving to save for their future. Michael prides himself on being financially savvy, spending hours on Reddit to find ways to optimize his money. He recently moved his $30,000 in savings to a high-yield savings account at a digital bank. With an interest rate of 4.6%, Michael smiles as he looks at his Excel spreadsheet today. While his neighbors receive a measly 0.01% at major banks, he is earning hundreds of times that. Michael believes he has hacked the system, finding a safe haven against rising inflation in the U.S. But even at 4.6%, the bank makes more money from his sweat and tears than he ever will. Sarah's story is even more common. She is a believer in absolute safety and traditional banking. She has kept $30,000 in a traditional savings account at a large national bank for 5 years. She feels reassured seeing the FDIC logo on the glass door every time she visits her local branch. At the end of last year, Sarah received her interest notification, and the total was a mere $114. With that same money, the bank funded auto loans and credit cards, generating a profit of over $1,800. Sarah received $114. They kept the rest, and she still feels grateful that the bank kept her money safe. She doesn't realize she is getting poorer because U.S. inflation is eroding her value faster than the interest. Michael earned more, but after federal and state income taxes, he is just running on a financial treadmill. The high-yield savings accounts you love might actually be a financial mistake, keeping you stagnant for life. Emergency fund for 6 months of living expenses and feels proud of her bank notifications. With an average interest rate of 0.38%, her $30,000 brings in about $9 per month. That is not even enough to buy a Big Mac in New York. Her money is not sitting in a vault. The moment she hits the deposit button, the bank takes it to squeeze out a massive profit for themselves. The core business model of American banks relies on a concept called the net interest margin. Average net interest margins for U.S. banks have reached 3.39%, the highest figure in many years. They rent Sarah's money at 0.38% and then lend it back to other Americans at predatory rates. If someone uses her money for credit card debt, the bank collects interest up to 21% or higher. For auto loans, they collect 7.5%. If it is a mortgage, they collect around 6.8%. The massive gap between what they pay Sarah and what they collect from borrowers builds Manhattan skyscrapers. But a darker secret lies in the treasury trade strategy, where the bank takes zero risk with your cash. The bank simply buys short-term U.S. Treasury bills with interest rates ranging from 3.6 to 5%. They receive a safe rate from the government, pay Sarah a fraction, and pocket a spread of over 3%. The bank acts as an unnecessary middleman between you and the U.S. government for easy computer operations. Major U.S. banks are expected to rake in $12 billion from overdraft and maintenance fees in 2024. They use your money for profit while finding ways to fine you if your balance drops too low. You are not their customer. Your deposit is the product, and you pay them to use that product. Michael believes his 4.6% interest rate is the holy grail, but the tax system says otherwise. Online banks often advertise high rates to attract depositors, but you must read the fine print below. Many accounts only apply the high rate to the first $5,000, pushing the rest to normal rates. Or worse, it is a promotional rate for 3 months before it quietly drops without any notification. Michael's greatest enemy is the IRS. Interest from savings accounts is considered ordinary income for taxes. Living in California, Michael faces some of the highest state income tax rates in the entire country. The 22% federal bracket and a 9.3% state bracket, he pays 31% in total taxes. Out of his $1,380 in interest, the government will knock on his door and take nearly $430. The actual amount he pockets is $950. Meanwhile, U.S. inflation has fluctuated around 3.5% lately. To maintain the same purchasing power, Michael needed to earn at least $1,050 this year. After taxes, His 950 is lower than inflation. Michael is not getting wealthier. His net worth is negative. Why am I paying a middleman to buy government bonds for me when I can do it myself? This is the secret wealthy families in New York or California use to protect and grow their assets. Instead of an HYSA, they pivot to U.S. Treasury bills or ETFs like SGOV for short-term bills. Michael invests $30,000 into SGOV at 5.2%. He earns $1,560 in 1 year. Most importantly, interest from U.S. government bills is exempt from state and local income taxes. In California, switching to T-bills immediately saves him nearly $150 that would go to the state. His total after-tax profit is now significantly higher than any savings account available on the market. With funds like SGOV, Michael has high liquidity and can withdraw money within 2 business days. The American wealthy also use money market funds at brokerages like Fidelity or Charles Schwab. These funds pay competitive interest rates while providing absolute transparency for your daily investment. You know exactly what your money is buying. Usually extremely safe short-term debt from the government. By eliminating the bank as a middleman, Michael gains absolute control over his financial destiny today. He no longer waits for the bank to grant him a rate. He takes profit directly from the source. Sarah asks, but money in the bank is FDIC insured. Is investing in those government funds really safe? Who backs FDIC insurance? The U.S. government. Who backs Treasury bills? Also the U.S. government. Owning Treasury bills is considered even safer than depositing money in a traditional bank account. If the bank becomes insolvent, you wait for the FDIC. With T-bills, you are a direct creditor. You hold the debt of the United States government, the entity that prints money and collects taxes. The U.S. government has never defaulted on its bonds in modern financial history. Safety is guaranteed. Worrying about safety here is like being afraid to leave a lifeboat for a massive aircraft carrier. Michael found he doesn't need to move all his money at once to maintain emergency liquidity. He set up a 3-tier system that the American wealthy call a cash waterfall for his savings. Tier 1 is a checking account with enough for 1 month of expenses and easy bill payments. Tier 2 is a short-term emergency fund in a money market fund at Fidelity, like the SPAX X fund. This money earns high interest but can be withdrawn or used to write checks immediately. Tier 3 is a long-term accumulation fund where his $30,000 really goes to work. He sets up an automatic purchase for ETFs like SGOV or BIL to grow his wealth steadily. Dividends flow back into the account every month, and he uses that money to reinvest for the future. Responsible but uninformed. She is inadvertently letting the bank erode her entire future. Michael thought he had won, but he was just finding a more comfortable seat in the bank's machine. The smartest move is asking why you need the bank's presence in your wealth-building plan at all. Don't just look at the 5% interest rate figures that banks dangle in front of you. Look at the actual money you have left after taxes, inflation, and those hidden fees. The American wealthy get rich by understanding the rules and cutting out unnecessary middlemen. Banks are not keeping your money. They are renting it to make a profit for themselves. Stop being a cheap capital provider and start becoming a direct investor in financial power. Learn to operate your money independently. That is the only way to build sustainable wealth. Don't let your money sleep in the bank's box. Let it step out and fight for your future.